thumbnail.
Yeah,
Yeah.
algorithm loves that stuff. I'm a walrus. The walrus. We were all
Walrus
set.
are built for the algorithm. Yeah, and flare the nostrils slightly.
You just have to end the video because Daniel's killing me.
Look scared and
Oh.
surprised at the same time.
And if you could hit that little bell, if you could hit that little bell, if you could hit that little bell. Oh, I love that one.
Also, one other thing, which is a little more of a
Subscribe. We forgot.
Well, you should subscribe
We're
because
screwing up his marketing, Daniel. Stop it. We're screwing up his marketing. Just stop.
Maybe it's just better if we descend into mad laughter. Like this is like 2 or 3.
Oh, what if like the algorithm would really like falling out of the chair or something?
Yeah.
I'm wondering how much of this is you're actually going to put on YouTube.
What's all going on?
Yeah. Oh yeah, all of it.
I'm over it. I'm over worrying about it.
It's gonna get taken down for hate speech because we're unveiling the secrets of the algorithm. Yeah, hit the button. Okay. I'm totally cool, and I'm down to discuss anything in any way whatsoever. So it works for me.
I did want to say briefly though about the stupid YouTube algorithm. What's up with that? Why did it choose that video to recommend to a whole lot of people? Is what it seems like.
Because we did our makeup. The makeup paid off, didn't it? I did mine, so it really worked.
The double toothpick. If you do the double toothpick.
Yeah, the double toothpick. The algorithm can't resist. It's like, oh, garages are hot. Garages are so hot. No, you went for one of those provocative. I don't care about your degrees. That's what did it. Algorithm loves that fight. It wants that fight. It likes that go after people because then all people do. Yeah, they love that stuff. They love that stuff.
Yeah, watch so and so get destroyed by. Yeah. Okay, that'll be the next one then. I'll call the next one. Watch us destroy.
Destroy. Yeah, it'll be 10K.
And the world.
Oh yeah.
And
it destroys algebra.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, destroys algebra.
That's the nerdy version.
Yeah, people on the net will get that. But
and then in brackets, in 2 hours.
In 2 hours. Destroy! In 2 hours.
It's got to be a 5-minute clip.
That's why they picked it. Because you had that provocative, and we talked about AI a little bit, and we made claims that can piss people off. That's what the thing loves, right? So
now I've got it. Marketing course with
well, I mean, it is a thing though. Like you make something for the internet, and then you're about to just like launch it. And then you have to go, oh, what's the title? You have to frame it somehow.
I know.
And I mean, I do think that you picking that line from Daniel was, I mean, strategically a good move with the algorithm, apparently.
So what happens is, like, as I just watch it back, and there was something just about the way he said it that I was like, oh, I like that. And I thought, fine. I actually went and changed it a couple of times to relationship because I thought to myself, I don't know that it actually captures what we talked about, but something about the line I liked. And I just go with that. And it's like, most people won't even understand what this title means. It's probably the worst title ever if you ask a marketing person. That's how I'm usually thinking. I just put a title on. All right. So I just need to make them aggressive and
angry, aggressive and angry and fight. Yeah, it's a funny thing with all of that. If you have a pic that has a face, because the YouTube is now incentivized to get facial recognition, so they're trying to gather data on faces. That's why everyone has their face, and also the algorithm really likes faces that are like, it has like a shocked look on the face. So it's like, because then you have to click. You're not sure if it's like. It likes this ambiguous emotion shock look.
That's the
and
still face experiment. Yeah. That's what traumatizes babies.
Yeah,
and marketers will tell you to deliberately make that face when you put your content on. And there's people like
I see it.
For example, Sabine Hassenfelder comes to mind.
She does that. Yeah, the scientist.
High-level physicist, like talking about complex stuff, but for the algorithm, she does this kind of dunce face. And but like I always kind of felt like, do I want to turn into a cartoon in order, because there's something cartoonish about it,
It's cartoonish.
Those thumbnails freak me out. Yeah, all those thumbnails, like all that stuff. I can tell it's obviously all like the people are doing things for particular marketing reasons. I just refuse to know what they are because I don't care. And I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
No, it's a very interesting thing in the sense of, is it stubborn not to do it? Is it virtuous not to do it? Is it wise not to do it? Is it principled not to do it? What is the ethics of doing it or not doing it, right? Like, what is the ethics of caring about the algorithm? right? Like I think that speaks to money and business and economics and many things in general, right? Because there seems to be a problem to say that making money is bad, but it also seems to be a problem to suggest the point is making money. It seems wrong to say that having a video get a lot of views is bad, but it also seems problematic to say that that's the point, right? So where do you draw the line, right? Like, and how do you draw the line? On what terms do you draw the line? And is it right or wrong? I think those are very serious questions. Like, if you're saying, well, I believe in these ideas, for example, and I think that people should hear them. First, are you being egotistical? Is that even true? But let's just say you're genuine, right? And it actually is the case. Well, then you say, well, maybe I should do an algorithm, a pleasing cover picture of a face, thumbnail. Maybe I should do a title that has a certain provocateur to it that's going to grab people and so on and so forth, right? Like, how do you make those decisions? I think those are very important questions to ask. I think it also gets into why you're doing something. Can you do it and really know that it's in good faith? There's things to be said about it. I mean, it's just an open field of questions, right? Like, to what degree, if it is the case that people are more likely to watch a 45-minute conversation than a 2-hour one, should you make a point to only make it 45 minutes, right? At what point are you being wise? And at what point are you sacrificing your principles or sacrificing, the essential things in order to cater to the marketing and to the algorithm? I don't actually think many people at all have a clear sense of how to draw that line and how to think that line and things like that. I think about things also, I guess, like, I don't know. Like, I think about things in terms of, I look at the YouTube and I look at that kind of stuff as actually kind of making art, kind of an artistic thing. And I think the YouTube channel would honestly, almost as just a kind of simple point, I think the YouTube homepage, when you go to it, just simply does not look beautiful when it has a bunch of faces that look weird. I'm quite partial to photographs and images of Japan, like just photographs, because when you click the video there, I want it to have a certain art to it, right? The columns of the OG rows and the net kind of being symmetrical. To me, there's a certain aesthetic experience to that. And I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm not even saying it's the right way to do. But I will say that for me, doing in that way, that also kind of helps you, I guess for me personally, there's a way in which that helps you continue believing in it because you see that you're maintaining the art of it and the spirit of it. Yeah. And I don't blame people who say do funny faced image pictures because, some people they've got to pay bills and they got to figure out how to make it work. I completely understand it. But I guess a thought I have about it, I don't want to say there's something wrong with going after the algorithm, but you must make sure whatever strategy you employ or however you go about being creative, it doesn't kill your spirit. And I know that sounds very simple, but it doesn't kill your sense that you're doing it for the right reasons or you're doing it for the right. If you can use a clickbait title and not feel like you're sacrificing the right reasons, that's perfectly fine. Only you can know that. And maybe you need to do that because you're afraid of being seen as somebody that chases the algorithm. And in fact, it could be training you virtuous to face that fear and to face that judgment, right? So I can imagine a situation where being seen as someone chasing the algorithm is actually good for you because you don't want to be seen that way, right? But then in another situation, I can see chasing the algorithm is very bad because you're afraid of not getting likes. And if nobody watches your videos, you don't make them. Well, that means you're doing it for the wrong reasons potentially, right? Or you're going to be manipulative. You're going to go into manipulation or stuff like that. So it's an interesting question, and I actually think it speaks to larger questions of business and all that different stuff. So it's interesting.
I would love to talk about that stuff. What I'm thinking too, as you're saying that, is as an example, like the kinds of thumbnails OG Rose uses to use a photograph or something like that. That already too is signaling things to the unconscious, like people are just taking it in differently. And so even if you are thinking about wanting your art or your video or whatever to reach a particular kind of audience, I do think there's something in that. It goes beyond just the obvious, the words that you write on the thumbnail, or it's the stirring, it's and you know, even in the picking of the photograph, there's the stuff that you know explicitly about why you picked that one, and then there's going to be the million and one reasons underneath that you have no idea why. It's like sometimes it's just that feels like the right one for this.
Yep.
And so it's the unconscious of the artist being sort of placed out there as a signal to, or as a potential sort of hook magnet for the unconscious of others. I do think there's something really important in that. You know, when I think about those thumbnails with just the scary still face people, and again, I agree with you. We actually have a really good thumbnail of one of those. I saw the other day, I was trying to make some clips again, and I saw one of our old conversations. You know, the one, I think it was a hologram one, where Daniel got frozen for ages,
Yes.
Seth?
Yep.
And we were sitting there trying to act like everything was normal. And I could see
all normal
tension in your face, Seth, and mine. And Daniel's just there frozen. Yeah, like that, exactly like that. That's the thumbnail we should actually use.
Yeah.
And then Seth, you were like, you were just dropping profound knowledge while just looking like you were screaming. Anyway,
Yeah, the whole time.
serious land. There's something about that still face thumbnail that again, I agree. I agree. It's very, very important for some people because they're using YouTube in a very particular way. They're trying to do something. They've got bills to pay. They're building something. I get it. So it's not a judgment. But it's interesting because that, you know, that is the still face experiment. Like it makes me think that is the kind of face that terrifies a baby. It's actually, I mean, I shouldn't make these sorts of judgments. I would say it's actually worse than just a parent who's angry at their child. When a baby just sees like a frozen kind of almost like slightly shocked, can't really see what's going on face, that's terrifying to a child because they can't get anything from it, and they're supposed to be extracting how they're supposed to feel from their caregiver is one way to think about it. This is supposed to be a mirroring experience. And there's nothing there. It's blank. It's like a horrifying blank on an emotional level. And so I think it's really interesting that that's what people that seems to be what people click on is that. And it makes me wonder how much of what is going on is trauma bonding. You know, just there's something. It's like, oh my God, that's in the unconscious. Oh my God, that's my mother's still face again. I've got an opportunity for it to finally not be still. I could click on the video and see it move. It's repair. It's repair for my deep trauma. There's something in it, I'm telling you, because
that is the advanced marketing tip that I don't think has been revealed before. And that could be the title for this video. Psychological marketing trip revealed, you know?
No, it should just be
trauma bond.
Finally see your mother's frozen face repaired. Finally find out what your mother was feeling.
Yeah, finally. Click here.
I'm still wondering how much of this is you're actually going to put on YouTube.
What's all going on?
Yeah. Oh yeah, all of it. All of it. It's gonna get taken down for hate speech because we're unveiling the secrets of the algorithm. Oh, that's it. Secrets of the algorithm. That's the title. That's it. Bam.
Well, I love
algorithm of the secrets. Algorithm of the secrets. Okay, I'll go back.
I love the series of questions that you asked, Daniel.
Yes,
you know,
please.
It would be good in this case, but not in that case. And what about this? And what about that? Which is a strategy I've noticed crops up from time to time in O.G. Rose. But what seems so powerful about it is just if we just pause and ask, how would you title your YouTube video? You really, it's pretty obvious you're going to get a whole range of answers. And that some of the answers that other people give are going to be repulsive to the other person.
Yep.
And it's actually a really good representation, I think, of the question, one of a single example, but it's an example of this situation of global pluralism where
yes, it is.
It's not just that we have different points of view, it's that like your heaven is my hell. Like your favorite is my, goes at the very bottom of the pile for me, and that's just, and the number of ways that takes place is just probably growing by the day. The other thing that I find interesting is I was thinking about, if you're a content creator.
One sentence? I'm so sorry to cut in, Seth, just to underpin all that. Then perhaps though what you're getting at there too though, is that the one thing that does bind all of us most of us, is trauma. of some kind at a young age, and so that still face thumbnail is the
Well, that would be great to come back to.
Keep going, please.
What I was projecting you would say, because it's what I wanted to say.
Please project onto me, project away.
Well, I love the phrase, how is this a common experience? I mean, I think it's, you know, in the language of O.G. Rose, the Gödel point is a common experience, but yeah, we probably label it trauma most of the time.
Yes.
Oh, that's the experience of not knowing what the hell is going on in this social situation. That's the experience of feeling totally frozen. But the thing is, we have it in common, except for you, it happens in this situation. For me, it happens in that situation. So it's also easy for us to miss and to assume that everyone else here is not only comfortable in the moment that I'm triggered, but they're always comfortable all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the one who's got problems, or, you know, of course we can do it in the other direction and, you know, think that we're the one who's got it all figured out. But
I love that, Seth. That's really, yeah.
Yeah, and well, I guess what I'm also trying to get at here is how, on the one hand, I think if you really slow down and talk about it, and I think that's maybe, you know, for the millions of people who watch our videos, I think that is some of the value of what comes up here. And in a lot of discussions on the liminal web or the social coordinating mechanisms, it's people just sort of talking about, hey, you know what happens when you're in this situation and someone says blah, 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 and everyone's like, yeah, I know that feeling. But it's like, we actually need to do that. We need to realize that these experiences that we have, especially as atomized as we are now, are not so unique, that all kinds of people are going through this. And just to come back to the algorithm, but I think it's a specific example of this, I was thinking about if you're a content creator and you're kind of trying to figure out the algorithm, well, yeah, you can like listen to marketers, you can do a lot of stuff, but you know, it's famous that they keep changing the damn thing. And it's kind of a mystery, right? It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like fishing. You throw your fishing line, except the way the algorithm operates, as opposed to, let's say, we're hunter-gatherers looking for a meal. Is it more predictable, less predictable than that? Like, I mean, again, like you could think of a million different instances, but I think it's, you know, and the specific thing we were just talking about, you know, like if we use, I mean, it's kind of, I don't know, fishing is not a bad metaphor, at least for a certain way of thinking about marketing. Although, you know, if we think that we're sticking hooks into other people's throats and pulling them towards us, that's kind of like
catch and release.
So, yeah, that's right. Just watch my video and then you can go on with your day. Just like and subscribe. then
actually, I like fishing, and because I've got. Please continue. I think the fishing one's good. I can.
Well, I mean, those are some of the basic thoughts I had, but I also just was listening back to the last episode of The Net where you all were talking about the role of art, and I didn't get all the way through it, and I
missed it.
There's a lot of discussion of anime, which I haven't watched at all, but it was really interesting what was being talked about. And you said at one point, Daniel, you were talking about, I mean, from what I got, you know, a bunch of people have all kinds of thoughts about anime, but what really stood out for me is like, these are cartoons that are not for children. So they're actually, we are making use of the format of animation to do things that in live action are impossible, so that it would be kind of stupid to do it in a live action movie. But now we can tell stories, you know, with, you know, people whose bodies that transform or whatever supernatural kind of thing you want. But we can also do it, you know, and draw on archetypes. We can make real art. We can do deep storytelling. And anyway, Daniel, you said something about the role of art in like making plain the experience of global pluralism. Yes. Like we can show two people who have completely two different worldviews interacting, and the viewer will have a clear experience of, oh, this is a person who thinks this talking to a person who thinks that, and look at how it plays out. And it's, you know, it's I think that's a common experience in our lives right now. So I really appreciated that. And I'll stop. But just lastly, like what you said about making the thumbnails on the videos for OG Rose be artistic, you know, I often think of YouTube as a medium where you certainly can do art, but for the most part, you don't see art here. And so just presenting art in a place where it seems slightly out of context, it's a certain kind of signal. All of these things are signals, and of course we're sending all kinds of signals that we don't understand that we're sending. But
yeah, there's something about I'll be very quick, Daniel. There's something about the putting a photograph as the thumbnail, again, just as an example, that to me there's something more honest about that, and I guess that's just because of me and what I do and how I think about things, but I don't know, there's more of an honesty around. I don't know, like I'm putting something here that has a whole lot of signals inside it that could reach you in all sorts of different ways, and I'm not quite sure how they're going to reach you, and yet there's something, I don't know how to put it into words. There's a more honest kind of, I guess it's marketing. There's a more honest giving out into the ether kind of thing about that than because you're taking more of a risk, I guess, because there's less that is obvious about how that will be received versus something like, you know, we do lots of focus groups and we find out, you know, that doing this facial, what am I looking for? This facial move, this expression, looking for this, doing this facial, I'm a psychologist, yeah, I don't know the word expression. Doing this kind of facial expression is the thing that, you know, happens to speak to the most people, and you know, and here's the curve, and they'll definitely click on your video and watch for at least 5 minutes and all this stuff. Like, you know, to me, that's just, again, it goes back to, like, I call it mining. We're just mining, you know, the crap out of people, versus I don't know, something about, here's a photo. I'm kind of, there's more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? A faith or like a throwing out into, I think you know what I'm saying. This is very inelegant. That's more honest to me. I prefer that. I prefer to see like someone took a risk there. It's more of a kind of a relational risk or something, like a real one, an honest one. I put a photo there as opposed to I'm doing the thumbnail thing that, you know I'm supposed to do because more people will click on it. Yeah, there's something in that, but
no, I appreciate everything that everyone is saying. First, on the story, I do think, to say something very broad, a role of story now is to tell story, like in 2025. Stories should focus on stories of the Gödel point, because thinking the Gödel point and the encounters of the Gödel point is the problem of global pluralism. And I think story, it is very important, like almost in a sense, the role of story is to articulate the event horizon, the edge of our current problems. In the Gödel point is, I think, the key issue, the problem of internally consistent systems. The point on animation, yeah, like you can tell stories in anime, that you can't realistically tell in live action. And here's the issue. If actually our ability to be rational is tied to the kind of stories we hear and what we believe is possible, if you are limited in the kind of stories you can tell, you'll actually have a more limited rationality and your thinking will be more limited. And then also, too, there's a strong relationship between music, like what music is composed and what stories are in the society, right? Like why does Bach make St. Matthew's Passion? Because there's the story of Christianity, right? And so I would argue that some of the greatest music that's been made in the last 30 years has been like Joe Hisaishi out of the Mizuzaki films. It's been Yubaku in like Final Fantasy VI or whatever. Because these stories in these video games and these animes gave them reason to make music that they otherwise would never have reason to make.
yes.
And that results in there being these extraordinary pieces, like the opening of Princess Mononoke, or Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind. Like this music is unbelievable, right? But this is also the point, is that you should actually expect a loss of quality, and I'd have to justify all this. You should expect a loss of quality in all the arts in a society where story is in decline. And the argument would be that where you are limited in the kind of stories you can make, it's simply probability that you will probably have a decline of story, especially when you start getting into more of the deep philosophical problems like the Gödel point, et cetera, so forth, because it's very difficult to figure out how to tell that story. And, you know, it may just be the case that the story you think of that does it doesn't work very well in live action. Well, if you don't have animation, then you can't tell that story then. And your society might be worse off because you don't have that story. I would actually argue a lot of the Japanese works have been dealing with the problem of internally consistent systems, certainly over the last 10 years in different ways, that they were allowed to because of the medium of animation. Now, all of this has to be expanded on, but
Daniel, I wanted to
please.
I'm being a little actually conscious of the viewer right now, but would you actually just say for someone who doesn't know, what's the Gödel point, what's an internally consistent system? These are key ideas for you. We've talked many times, but it might be nice to just pop them in here.
Absolutely. The problem of internally consistent systems is the problem that people at this point in history, let's say you have Christianity, atheism, Islam, and we'll just take those three. I would argue that all three of them are internally consistent, meaning if you assume their first premises, then there is no essential contradiction in the belief system. Like it all goes together. And yet all three of those are internally consistent. Well, then what do we do? How does democracy work then? Because the whole idea of democracy is there's the possibility of convincing people to change their views, or we can have an exchange of ideas and people will shift. Well, that only can be the case, at least as traditionally understood, if there are no internally consistent systems, only if there's one internally consistent system, ergo the rational one, you know. And if there's actually multiple internally consistent systems, then we have to rethink what exactly democracy is. We have to rethink what it is when we talk, because it basically means you can't convince people out of an internally consistent system or to change their views with rationality, because rationality is it's folded into it. Right? Like they have their system. And I think we see this honestly in psychology, like people's stories and their marriages, their traumas. Everyone has an internally consistent system that they're stuck in.
This is the root of it all. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would argue that actually manifests on the worldview stage. The same goes with things like communism, Christianity, liberalism, free market. I would argue Austrian economics is an internally consistent system if you accept the base axioms. I would argue communism is an internally consistent system if you accept the base axiom, right? Now, the key I'm saying is the base axiom, right? The issue is after Gödel, it was the end of the possibility of a formal system. And what that means is a system that doesn't have to refer to anything outside of itself. So the dream of, you could say, like everything before Gödel, was to have an internally consistent system that would not have to rely on anything that could not be provided by that internal system in its very consistency, right? Like, another way to look at it is like the trade-off between coherence and correspondence that we'll talk about a lot. Like if your map is completely perfect, like it totally coheres, then by definition it can't be the same as the territory. Because if it was, then it would be as big and massive as the territory and you couldn't use it, right? Like a map that was a perfect map would be useless. It would be the territory, right? So if your map is completely coherent and makes sense to you as a map, and you can actually use it to navigate the territory, then that means it can't be the territory. So that's weird, right? That's weird. The dream of a formal system was that if you made a perfect map, it would be the territory. That a perfect map would be equivalent to the territory, okay? It's not. You always have an excess. You always have information you lose. You cannot get the rules justifying the system within the system itself. Right. And so that's the incompleteness. That's the Gödel incompleteness that makes you realize the map is not the territory. So this is the double move. There's the weird double move. The fact that the map is not the territory, and that's the language I tend to use from Korbisky because it's the easiest to kind of get at it. Now, Kurt Gödel does it in formal logic. I mean, he does it in a much more extraordinary manner. And he uses something called Gödel numbers to actually show that this would be the case he's thinking Frege and obviously Russell and Whitehead and people. But the funny move is that the very fact that the map is not the territory means that you have the problem of dealing with the possibility of confusing their map as the territory and choosing X map versus Y map. Because if no map is perfect, then I can't, from the very imperfection of a map, determine which map should be used and which should be disregarded, right? Like, I can't go, well, Christianity, hey, that's just a map, it's not the territory. Well, I can turn around and say, well, hey, Islam, communism, that's just a map, it's not the territory. So the fact that maps are not the territory can't be used to get people to change their minds. In fact, it can be used to make people just keep whatever views they have. Because if no map is the territory, and this map is internally consistent, it's as good as any other map. So why would I change? Why would I change, right? So the very fact that the map is not the territory actually gives you reason to never change your map, right? But in the very same move that makes all maps equal, that it must do so by meaning that the map isn't the territory, that there is a point of a realization of incompleteness, right? And that's the Gödel point. So the tricky double move is that the Gödel point, which unveils incompleteness, can either be used to keep you in your map forever, because there's never any reason to change, or it could be used as the meeting ground between people encountering one another to then give you a way to address global pluralism. Because that's the tricky double move, is that I could use the Gödel point to finalize my map and make it indestructible. I could use the Gödel point to make my map indestructible. Because I can say, absolutely, my map is not the territory, but neither is you, and there is nothing you can say to make me change my map, and now it's indestructible. And that's basically what people will do in their ego. They'll use the indestructible, and they'll choose the indestructibility. The remarkable move that I think has to be done is, instead of using the Gödel point for indestructibility, which is the ultimate temptation of the ego. I mean, you're offering indestructibility. What more could the ego ever want? It's incredibly rational to use the Gödel point for indestructibility. No, but what we're saying is what must be done for global pluralism is that people make the non-rational move of using the Gödel point as a point of connection with other people. That is where the maps encounter. But that is a massive ego death move. That's a massive ego death move. And it's incredibly non-rational, but it's what is completely necessary today. I'll pause and ask if that and I'm happy to elaborate on anything.
Can I just say there too, like, as you're mapping that out, and you've mapped that out so many times now for me and that I've heard, and I've always heard the parallel with the intrapsychic in it, but that was just the clearest yet. Like, in terms of like everything you were describing there, we could just talk about someone turning up for therapy, what's going on, why they're trapped, why they're so trapped. The majority of people I see are like really intelligent, hardworking. These are people that if you could just think your way out of this, they would have thought their way out of this by now. And they are just stuck in this hell of knowing something's not quite right, and they cannot figure it out. Anyway, and the Gödel point in that, I mean, in the work I do, the way I see it, is that is the portal into the unconscious. Do you want to allow that to come up and take it seriously? Do you want to go, as Seth said, fishing? I thought that was good actually in this regard, because like the water represents the unconscious. Do you want to actually look at what's down there and bring it up and actually add it in and make something? Do you want to take it seriously? Or is your life going to be in service of ensuring that that you keep that at a distance? Actually, it's really important I stay on this map for, like, I'm not using it correctly, but for that reason, to actually avoid taking the Gödel point seriously. And I see now as well, I mean, I just like that that's linked to the non-rational move, because I think actually it was our very first conversation, Daniel, when that rigour of mystery one, and that term's returned to my mind in recent weeks. And I'd actually wanted to talk to both of you about it today. So here we are. Look at that. How did I get there? What was I talking about? I was talking about there's the whole, and then
the psychological connection with the
yeah. Thank you.
Point. Yeah.
Thank you, friends. The first conversation that we had, Daniel, when I was trying to explain, it was like my first attempts to try and explain. There was something I'd always heard you at Voicecraft talking about non-rationality, And for some reason I was like, but that is like the thing that we're asking people to do in my kind of therapy, is make that non-rational move. Way more than I think in other forms of psychotherapy I've trained in, and I've trained in lots because I was looking for this. That there is actually there is a way in which we are able to help a person, to assist a person to make that, I guess, non-rational move, to actually go. And I know I'm kind of butchering your very beautiful explanation here of maps and Gödel points, and but I just I really felt it there. That is exactly what we are doing in this kind of therapy. And we do that too. Actually, this is a link to what you were just saying about the link between story and animation. We do that because we allow a person to be able to get in contact with things happening in their body and play with them in imagination, essentially. There's a bit more to it. They have to be really emotionally activated, and which means often very anxious. But once you can do that, then you can see what that emotion is trying to let you see in imagination. That space is so important to all of this, because it's the bit that's like, I don't actually have to go and do it in reality, but I can finally allow myself to see that it lives in there. The impulse to do it lives in there, and through you can experience like you did it that way as well, which then flows on to other emotions you would have about having really done that in real life, which is often part of what's trapped. Doing that process is the thing that essentially sounds like what you're talking about for an individual. I see this territory anew, or I see something new about it, or more so, I see almost the errors I was making, or I see the ways I was oversimplifying, or I see I don't know, there's something about it. It just reconfigures what is possible. Sorry, I probably just butchered all of that, but yeah, I want to highlight that, because it sounds like what we're talking about in terms of global pluralism is, once again, I always see it through, well, this is what we're doing in a person, and if you can do that in a person, then you can do it in a relationship, and that transforms relationships, and then the scale grows. Yeah.
Well, I want to try to connect some dots, because I think this is really good. I mean, yes, there is the experience of, this is my religion and it explains the world to me this way, and you have that religion, and how
there she is. You had the perfect still face. You had the perfect still face. No, the algorithm's going to love it.
I don't want to see. Oh, it still says recording.
We waited. We didn't talk about anything. We talked about a thunderstorm.
Until I saw that you were still, but
yeah,
I think I can remember.
We know the game. Don't worry. We know how this works.
It's the ultimate joke.
You're recording again?
As soon as we said that, it dropped it. Oh, that's hilarious. Just as soon as we did that, it dropped on it.
That's a pretty good thumbnail.
That's a good one as well. That's perfect for the cover.
I can hear you guys. I can hear you guys. Hold on.
That is hilarious.
Emotional content.
That is a perfect thumbnail. Oh, that is fantastic.
Should I use it as my bio photo on the?
Oh yeah, you should use it as your bio. That is fantastic. Oh, that works out. I mean, worst case, you can turn the video off. That could maybe help as well.
But I would still face.
But that's fine right now. So we'll just go. So Seth, you were saying Gödel point.
Right.
Get all together.
Okay, so maybe there'll be some repetition when the video comes out. But to pick up the thread before our technical difficulties, I was just noticing like several versions or several layers or several perspectives on the Gödel point. So there could be, that I have my religious worldview, my political worldview, but it could also be like within a family setting that the husband sees it one way, the wife sees it the other way, and we just can't see each other's, points of view on some level. But then, as we were saying earlier in the call, and I think the work of O.G. Rose is all about this, but we're also speaking about anime, or I think it's also what we're trying to do just in these conversations is you can sort of say, hey, there's a thing called the Gödel point, and here's how, it shows up, and you can help people recognize it. And then I was also, so again, to just sort of, I want to connect a bunch of dots, but this idea of the algorithm as compared to fishing, right? To fish, and you were noting the symbol of the unconscious, but it's also just like, I don't know if there's any fish down there. I'm hungry. I hope I'll get one. I want something for dinner, and then
Seth?
Yeah.
My way of thinking is there are definitely fish down there. It would be weird if there weren't, but I have no idea if I'm going to get one.
Yeah.
Right. And there's definitely people watching YouTube, but I have no idea if they're going to watch my video and click the link and do what I want them to do after they click the link, and all of that. But it strikes me that even the algorithm itself is fundamentally lodged inside the Gödel point in this day and age. So we talked before about, do you cater to the algorithm or not? But the fact is, everyone has to figure that out. Everyone's doing it differently. There are certain, if you're some top executive at one of these companies, you have a little more idea of how the algorithm works than other people. But we also know about the viral videos that know, and how did that go viral? Like, it is this kind of common, flashpoints. And I think, so something I was thinking about before the call, and I'll introduce it now, but is our notions of life after death, or our notions of, our religious notions about God or whatever. But all of those notions are some notion we have about a thing we can't prove. I mean, we can have faith, we can be super convinced, but yeah, so what I've been thinking about in particular is also that whatever view we hold of interaction with that which I cannot actually fully understand, there's still different specific strategies for doing that, right? So, when I was an atheist, it's like you die and everything goes black, and that's it. That's a different way of being in your body. That's a different way of determining how much capacity I have to handle a situation that feels a little risky, versus, I believe in God, I believe in heaven, I believe in reincarnation, I believe that I have multiple lives, and, I can slowly learn the lessons. I believe that there's someone looking out for me.
Yes.
And that too is, so the way I like to think of it now is like, if someone made a movie, and called it like The Map Is Not the Territory, The Revenge of the Gödel Point,
great movie,
Final Fantasy #3 or whatever. But like, what scene of that movie am I in right now? Can I be with a person and be like, I can't really penetrate under the surface of who they are because that's beyond the veil. But can I make guesses about what's beyond the veil? And I just feel like the algorithm is a version of the veil. I guess if I could boil everything I'm saying into this one word, I really want to highlight the idea of the veil. I can't see through it, but I know there's something on the other side, and I feel that that's a certain level of awareness within the current, just the current situation, and that Daniel and Michelle have described in that way of the map is not the territory.
Well, first off, I think it is absolutely the case that the Gödel point, the problem of internally consistence, is fractal in the sense of, on the level of the individual, it is a fractal of on the worldview, and it's all isomorphic. It's all coherent. It's all the same, just in different accidents, if you will. But structurally, it's identical. I would argue that the gestalt of being itself is a Gödel gestalt, meaning it is a whole with a Gödel point. But that Gödel point, if you approach it correctly, is the source of negentropy. But if you use the Gödel point instead to avoid the Gödel point, it's entropy. It's equilibrium and death. So your choice of how you relate to the Gödel point is basically the choice of life or death, the choice of entropy or negentropy. And at this point in history, as the Gödel point, in my opinion, is becoming more and more visible and vivid, then the absolute choice is becoming more and more unavoidable. And by absolute choice, I mean basically how you choose to relate to the Gödel point. Do you choose to dwell in it, or to use it to make yourself indestructible? That is becoming, like, that decision is now becoming clear at this moment of history. And it defines every level of the stack, from the personal to the worldview, actually. And it's the choice of entropy or negentropy, the life or death. right? But one of the reasons we choose to use the Gödel point to be invincible, because isn't invincibility life? Isn't that to choose life? Isn't it to choose the Gödel point death? Ah, the great conspiracy. It's the exact opposite. Choosing the Gödel point is life, and choosing the Gödel point for indestructibility is death, actually. But on the face of it, rationally, you would associate indestructibility being right with life and survival. But the truth is the non-rational. The true isn't the rational. The true is that actually giving up indestructibility is how you live. Because once you give up indestructibility, you gain flexibility, dance, life, insight versus rationality, or the Zwiggly. You gain all of these things, authentic resonance, and you find life in that, right? So what's basically happening is at this moment in history is a certain alignment of the personal and the worldview. It's all kind of the fractal of it all is becoming vivid. And what you learn on the personal level is actually what you need to employ on the worldview level. And it all kind of goes up and down. I actually strongly agree that the algorithm actually provides, oddly, a potentially universal experience that is participating in the kind of Gödel point problem in an indirect way, in the same way that AI does. AI, as talked about in Belonging in 2.2, actually functions as a causer, to allude to Luber and Alex's work of the story, because it forces you to actually ask the question, what is the human being? Like, what is human? Well, funny enough, you're going to arrive at a Gödel point if you ask that question. Because here's another way to put it. Imagine a world where everything AI does, there's nothing that human beings do that AI can't also do. At that point, you either have to choose that what makes us human is lacking, therefore it is in a Gödel point, it is something that is presently absent, or lack is not nothing and there's no difference between the human and AI. And that's the choice of self-effacement, right? But if you actually say, no, a human being is not reducible to their internal consistency and what the AI can emulate, that there's actually something more beyond that, that's going to change everything. So AI forces this causer. Now, that has to be elaborated on, but the algorithm kind of does as well. Because, like, for me, like what you were talking about, Aspasia, on this idea that the image has a certain honesty to it. The way I think about it is that if you put up a still image, the honesty is in the sense of you don't know what you're going to get. Like, there's a certain sort of, you have to want something unexpected.
Yes.
Because in a weird way, here's the funny thing. The freeze face, the reason you click it is because you're like, whoa, there's a surprise here. But actually, once that's gamified, it's no longer a surprise. No. It's actually, that's the weird thing. It's actually part of the internal consistency of the algorithm. The supposed Gödel, the supposed surprise, the supposed thing that is beyond mere clickbait. Because that's the weird thing. The ultimate clickbait is something that says, no, this is serious. It's not clickbait. That's the ultimate clickbait, right? Well, that's using the Gödel point for the algorithm, as opposed to kind of, that's a gamification, right? You're using this thing that's supposed to transcend clickbait because it's serious for the ultimate clickbait. So it has a kind of ultimate deceit to it, precisely because it is trying to posit itself, to present itself as not deceit at all. It's beyond it, right? But really, what you get is the expected. It's very expected. Those videos have you expect what they're going to say in the title, in the video. You have a sense of where they're going to go.
Oh, yeah.
Right? With a still image, there's a certain sort of, at least for me, if you're the kind of person that's willing to click on a photograph of Japan or just an aesthetic image, then there's a higher probability that you're the kind of person that would actually kind of align and resonate with the kind of stuff we talk about. Because you've already made a kind of non-rational choice. You've already made a choice that is not really rational or not really makes sense. Why would you click that video? It doesn't have any pull. It has no hook. So the fact that you did already kind of self-selects and suggests that you're a kind of person of whom would actually resonate with this kind of thing, right? Now, again, I mean, the O.G. Rose conversations have the same image of Jocko or Seth. They all like the pictures and different things, right? I mean, I'm not saying pictures of people are not there, but there's also a certain predictability.
They're very different.
It's the same sort of, basically it gives you a feeling of this is the structure. This is the thing that we do on Friday, right? That we have this conversation. Also, there's something to be said that Michelle and I also talk about this as well. And this is why also we don't moralize things, is the way that we do things on the channel is a mixture of, if a person, the way the video is presented strongly increases the probability that that the person who clicks it would be the kind of person who resonates with the material, right? So there's a sort of selection mechanism in that, but also from simply practical, is what is actually sustainable? Like, what is actually sustainable? A still image using a similar O.G. Rose conversation cover. This is also sustainable, which it makes Michelle and I want to continue doing it and believing in it. And so then you manage to continue doing it as well. So there's also a practical reason to it as well. So similarly, if people are using different cover pictures that might be more algorithmically, approving or something, well, that may be what they've, in their practical situation, determined needs to be done for them to sustain it, because maybe they as a couple or as a family wouldn't be able to maintain motivation if they were only getting 20 views, right? They would die, they'd give up, right? So it just depends on one's own circumstance. But for me, because so much of the material we do, and also the YouTube channel, is inseparable from the writing of books, because it is also tied to, if there's an auto summary that you need to do on a paper, then you're like, well, I need to get that paper edited that I've been putting off for 5 years. It kind of creates a fire to get the work done, if you're trying to maintain that aesthetic in different things. So that's all part of it as well. But if the material so much is going to be talking about things like non-rationality, or, the true isn't the rational, then the videos themselves should be presented in a manner that increases the probability that the person that clicks it is already kind of one step through the door, if you will, right? The same goes with a kind of person who's willing to listen to a 2-hour conversation on Philip. Like, there's all the liminal web, there's a kind of self-selection mechanism that is part of that, which then you're selecting for the kind of person you're looking for, not for what the algorithm is going to approve. You're trying to make it to where if somebody clicks it, there's a higher probability that they'll stay, and that they'll resonate, and that they'll grow, that they'll be meeting them where they need to be met, as opposed to reach, right? Because you're making that question of reach versus resonance, basically. And you could do both. Those things can go together. But that's one way I think about it. And I guess what I want to say is, there is something about the algorithm having the potential of being a Gödel point, or a signaling a willingness to meet in the Gödel point. Because if everyone knows that the algorithm likes videos that have a certain face, and you see videos that don't, then that sends a signal of being in the map, but looking for the Gödel point in the map. You're in the algorithm, but you're looking to be in the algorithm in a manner that is not just the internal consistency of the algorithm playing its own game, right? So that actually sends a certain, that itself is a choice in the direction of the Gödel point, that can signal to other people who are also looking for that. A willingness to meet in it. So those things go together. I'll pause there. And I mean, there is a veil. I think veil is also a big part of it. You're in this thing where you can't see through it. And are you using the veil to play the veil, like the algorithm is veiled? Are you using it to make it happy? Or are you instead pointing to the fact that, hey, we're all in relation to something veiled? Hey, we're all in relation. Our common experiences, we're dealing with something that's mysterious to us. Oh, what if this is like fractal of like the Gödel point, actually? What if this is actually fractal of every worldview, that the technology is simply making vivid the structure of personal relationships and worldviews and everything, and that the choice of how we relate to the algorithm probably is going to reflect of the choice we make in our religion. How do we relate to our religion? How we relate to our partner? It actually probably is all going to kind of mirror one another in different ways.
It's a willingness to take part in the mystery of it is where my mind keeps going.
Yes.
I'll be very quick, Seth. I don't have much to say. There was something there that I wanted to comment on. Oh, when you were just talking, it reminded me of the dream. Like a dream, the dreaming mind, a dream is often a breakdown of an internally consistent system.
Yes.
If you look at, and so a person's, this is also linking to a person's willingness to take part in dreaming, or to take dreams seriously, or to I can't remember what that links to. You were saying something there at the end that sounded like you were describing, oh, like to see a sea of thumbnails that all look the same and click on the one that's like, well, that person's not doing the face they're supposed to be doing. What's that all about? It just reminds me of the adventurer and like the adventurous spirit and the person who's seeking out the surprise, like you said. But it is like kind of being in a dream where you are sifting through the usual stuff and you see the strange thing that stands out in some way. Yeah, I just like that. That's just again, that just links to what we're talking about here. Art, the dream, going into imagination, being able to use the imagination in particular ways, and how and mystery and yeah, I don't know. Seth, what's happening for you?
Yeah, there's a particular way I was thinking of veil that I think I can maybe articulate a little bit better now. So, I mean, it's many things, but Daniel, you were saying, you know, can I make the algorithm happy, or do I do the thing, you know, like, but there's also somewhere in between there, after I've determined how I wish to get the algorithm to behave, there's still the fact that I don't completely know how to accomplish that. There's still the fact that, like, you know, where we started, why the hell did our last video get all of these views? Like, we don't know.
That's the title right there.
We don't know.
Well, now we can just consciously, like, you know, rehearse, or we're trying to figure out the thumbnail is all we're really doing for 2 hours.
People are gonna love
That's the title. All
So
we're doing for
much.
2 hours is figuring out the thumbnail.
Check out the weird faces we can do.
There's that one conversation I had with Daniel where I had just met him and I loved how animated he was, and I actually had like a series of his.
That was really nice. I loved that. I loved that thumbnail, Seth. That really was.
Well, when I made it, I thought, you know, this is just Daniel, but I actually thought this will catch people's eye, you know. So that was fun because it felt kind of organic. I actually felt like I was doing a little bit of the thing, like, you should watch this video, but I also felt like,
but it was you.
Different.
It was
it was still you. It wasn't
Right. But so the thing being with the veil, like, so there's different approaches to it, but there's also that if I reach my hand through the veil, oh, there she goes again.
No,
she comes back.
No, she's there. Right.
Yeah, I was just doing
I went behind the veil.
I was just doing a blank face. Yeah.
You just went behind the veil. That's all.
That's
well,
right.
You know, so when you reach back,
sorry.
Is like, it's getting a little too meta. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
When you reach beyond the veil, you know, you don't know what you're going to come up with. When you reach, you know, under the surface of the lake into the mud, now you're feeling around, but you've lost the visual information. And I loved when you were saying, Daniel, something about, you know, the trick is, this is what looks like running toward death, but this is actually what running towards life is. And that's why it's so challenging, and why I think it can be so helpful, you know, in different ways, to just amplify and demonstrate this is what the Gödel point is. And I think there's still a place where you can understand, I'm not going to make the kind of thumbnail that most people make. I'm going to do it differently to send that signal. But then, now that we're in this narrower, more precise place, there's still varying levels of success we could have. I mean, there's more distinctions to make after this, and now, you know, but there are things, and I think that even within those, like, so to say we're in that sort of finer distinction, there's maybe a smaller version of something that's a little more like clickbait, that is the right decision. It just don't do clickbait, you know, to try to get the 1 million viewers, but when you've already narrowed your audience down to about 10,000, here's the thing that's going to get more than 10,000 people to look at it rather than less. And, you know, anyway, not to make this about YouTube thumbnails, but I think it's just a useful example of something.
It's a great example.
Larger.
Yeah, it's a great example.
Well, and I just want to say, I think there's other things that we could do in life. Like I want to come up with a different example if I can, and maybe Aspasia can help me with this, but it's like, how can I now do the thing, maybe with my spouse or with my best friend, that seems like it would kill the relationship? And, you know, maybe, you know, someone has advised me, here's the good move to make. And I'm like, no way, I can't do that. You know, it's having the difficult conversation or whatever. Or it's, you know, I'm just going to buy this person a gift for no reason. Oh, well, they'll think you're trying to, you know, bribe them. Oh, maybe they'll just be delighted, you know, like, but you can literally think that a thing will be exactly the opposite.
Yes.
And then I think
you don't.
yeah, well, just last thought. I mean, I think, you know, we could call it being an adventurer or not, but I think, you know, if we go back to the marketing example, they always say you have to just keep testing. Like, so I think you literally have to swing and miss a bunch of times to begin to understand how to navigate the Gödel point. And you just have to be okay with falling on your face, you know, tripping over your words, whatever cliche you want. But mistakes really, you know, having less allergy to mistakes becomes very important as well.
Very important. Very important. You have to be willing to fall flat on your face and just keep getting up. And, you know, that's why I do think that's why, like, hand in hand with talking about things like emotions and therapy, like, it's so important to be doing something with your body, some kind of training with your, like, your physical body as well. Like, I think there's so much you learn in that. You know, my son does jujitsu, and I just
Nice.
might just be a story I tell myself, but I just see how much he is learning in this very different way. That is just, it's all linked to emotions. It's all linked to emotions, and it's all linked to how you work things out in relationship. And it's linked to how you deal with noticing your power, your strength, the other person's. All these things play into it, especially when we're talking about global pluralism. How did I get here? Sorry, I'm a bit flighty today. Right. You were talking about, Seth, how a person, yeah, might approach that, and I agree. I think you have to be willing to continue to try, um, because it's not clearly predictable. That's the whole point. And so there is no magic answer. You know, like, this happens in therapy all the time. There is no magic answer when a client comes in and says to me, here's all the information. Should I break up with my wife or not? I don't know. Like, I could give you 500 reasons that you should and 500 reasons that you shouldn't. And also, why are you asking me about your life? You met me 10 minutes ago. Like, you know, it's a wish that we have. It's this, and I don't mean to say that in a callous way. I mean, I have the similar wish deep down, you know, that there's going to be some magical other person that is going to just be able to give me, you just do that, and then you do that, and then and that we might figure out some sort of special secret about how to know which move exactly to make when. Um, you can't. Now, there are things that you can tune into, that increase the likelihood that, and again, we're just getting back to authentic resonance, I know, but that increase the likelihood that you will move in such a manner that will, oh gosh, open up possibilities that meet you where you are currently, so they don't flood you, however, are continuing to have momentum and opening. I don't know how to talk about it anymore, to be quite honest, without just using words like mystery and awe and the divine and like sacred. And like, I used to try and be so careful with all those words because for so many people they don't sound rigorous. But really, I just think about it in those terms now. That just makes so much sense for me. So it's quite difficult to translate it back. There's something
just
about
say
it.
that we need more rigor in exactly that place. I mean,
The
I think
rigor
the
of
more
mystery.
you use those words, then you can start to say, when I say God, I don't mean this, I mean this. But, you know, like, it's actually, I think, a beautiful conversation starter. So
I agree.
yeah.
But the thing that, you know, if I try and put it in some simpler terms, And these are, again, not always going to be the answer to, this is the thing about going on the internet. If someone's listening to this and they're like, oh, good, now this woman's going to tell me something that I'm going to be able to go and take now and fix my faltering relationship, what's coming? Like, I might, whatever I say next might actually not be at all relevant to what they're facing. But some things, sweet, you know, some of the more general ways of thinking about that I think are useful is, what is something that is emotionally honest that I could share? What is the thing that I always sort of omit when I talk to this person? And why? Like, and again, this is about the kind of relationship. It doesn't mean just like go and do it for unless you're purposely training it or something. Don't go and purposely just do it with some random colleague at work or something. If it's a relationship that you have noticed there is something not working and I want it to be working, but I want to be connected to this person, then these are the sorts of things you can reflect on. How can I be more honest? It will feel vulnerable and scary and anxiety provoking. Lots of stuff, depending on all the different ways this can go. It might be that a whole lot of stuff starts up in your head that convinces you that would be the absolute worst move, like all these stories that we're talking about. This person will never possibly understand me if I did that. We could project out what's happening for us. We could just like go to talk to them, and then all of a sudden, even though everyone else watching would never see this, all of a sudden that person, to our physiology, becomes like very, like, they look angry, and then we start to think they're really angry at me, right? They're not angry at you. It's your anger that you've placed on them, so you don't have to have this conversation because you don't want to go near your anger. You know, there's lots of moves. So we project out these things onto other people. So there's a lot to get through to be able to do it. So even, but that would be the kind of thing that I would say, in a general sense, is how we start to dwell in the navel of the dream together, or the Gödel point in a relationship, is, here's this thing that I've kept very close to my chest. I would never dare to bring up here. Maybe even really let myself notice inside that it even comes up when I'm here in this relationship, and I'm just going to try and put some voice to it and let you know. And that's scary. So I think honesty with the person, but also honesty in terms of looking within yourself. What is the part that maybe I have contributed to whatever's happening here? Like, what is actually going on for me inside? But in my mind, it's emotional intimacy that needs to be deepened, and that is the thing that our society is just starving for. And there are all these ways that it is performed or promised to you if you do X, Y, Z. Or if you're not getting it, it's because of everyone in your life. They can't give it to you. It's them. It's their fault. You're perfectly fine. Or the other way around. It's been hijacked, this, and I think even if we go back to the thumbnail example, this might not actually work, but I'm going to try. Maybe that is part of, you know, people, there's something about seeing that face that is kind of emotionally neutral, but kind of also like, oh, like grabs your attention, like, well, oh, like it strikes you in that manner. But it's been hijacked. That whole thing's been hijacked, and so you click on it. It's almost like a sense that you get. I think there is some sort of ping of like an emotional, like a very superficial emotional intimacy in that moment or something. There's something going on, I think, around that. And that is like emotional intimacy that at its deepest form is a long unfolding process that you do over time, requires patience, requires moments of falling on your face, a wide range of complex, intense emotions that if you really let yourself feel them, also pull on all the threads of the times you felt that in your past that you don't ever want to remember. They're going to force you to remember it. It requires a lot of you. It's not easy. It's a non-rational move. But starting to even consider, what does emotional intimacy mean for you, might even just be a good starting point. Like, what is the difference between when you're with your friend or whomever, like someone who you care about? What are the kinds of things you do when you feel most emotionally intimate with that person? can you track the range of that? Like, I think just tuning into that as an idea is really important. We talk a lot about things like techniques for how you could phrase a very difficult sentence that you need to tell someone. That's good. Have you actually figured out what you're feeling deeply first before you do that? And are you able to also maybe cry while you do it? Are you also able to maybe look visibly anxious, right, while you do it? Isn't that also a kind of intimacy that you're choosing to show up and be with that person, even though all that's happening in your physiology, and you don't go, oh, I can't let anyone see that. That's so embarrassing, or that, like, and leave. If feelings start to come up midway through the sentence with that person, are you willing to stop and reflect on what is this coming up? Maybe this is different now to the rest of the content of the sentence that I was about to share. Which one's more important in this moment? Can I depart from the plan that I had here to say this big sentence about, I don't know, when you haven't remembered to do X, Y, and Z lately, I've been feeling whatever. And like, I read that that's how you're supposed to present it to someone. And, that's how you're supposed to have these conversations in couples. And that's important. I don't want to minimize, like, that is important. People need to be able to have some kind of structure to talk about difficult things together, especially if they've never learnt it implicitly. Absolutely you do. But people hold on to these things like they are the answer, right? I've read the protocol for how you have the difficult conversation. And that's it now. I'll stick to that. And then we're back up at superficial level. I just plot in my feeling in that box and my reason in that box and ask them to say it back to me, to make sure that, like, I can check out that these are important. These are, I don't want to minimize, things like Gottman therapy and all, like, really, really vitally important in couples. We don't learn these things elsewhere. But again, this is more like, are you willing to depart from that as needed because some emotional signals coming up inside that could be, again, depends on the situation, but could be an invitation to actually develop something slightly different here. This is more of an emotional intimacy. This is but it steps more into the unknown because you have no idea, even as you're starting to experience the feeling and let it come up and you start to try and let the person see, you have no idea where that's leading. You didn't plan on that bit when you were thinking for 2 hours before you met the person about how you're going to do this and what will happen if that happens. And I'll say this and then I'll pretend I have to run because I've got a meeting. And then, like, there's no abort clause. It's just, I'm going to go and I'm going to and I feel this feeling welling up. Am I going to stop it mid-sentence or am I just going to let this person see it? It's frightening. And then it does also, sometimes you fall on your face, because what I mean by that is sometimes the other person does not take care of that. And they shut you down, they hurt you, they do tell you you're weird or strange. And if you've had a lifetime of that being the reason why you don't do that, and then it just happens to you again, oof, that is hard. That is hard. But this is about kind of the commitment to the rigor of mystery. There is still a mystery about the falling into the unknown of whatever. The way I see it, of the emotion that comes up from your depths is the unknown. It is the thing. And so in this moment, is this a place where it might actually, I could actually bring it and share it and be intimate with the other person. Anyway, so it's that, but I do think even just a word to take away from any of that is honesty. There is something, the word honesty is also fraught with challenges out there, I think, because honesty can depend on, like, again, it goes back to, you read advice somewhere, just be honest with your partner about how you feel. And then people can kind of unknowingly weaponize that. And everything becomes, it's a retort. It's like, well, I feel, that you should, I don't know, put the kids to bed tonight. I feel that you should. I feel it. Like, and then and the other person feels like you should.
Right.
Oh, and then, that's not, so yeah, yes, I will leave it there. Looks like we can all relate to that example, right?
Absolutely. And then you're just stuck in internally consistent systems.
Correct.
And you don't go anywhere.
And your
so
enemies there. Like, you're just standing there looking at each other like, who's gonna win?
Yes. So basically, what everything you were describing about the vulnerability, the honesty, being there with the person, feeling the emotions, that is all to dwell in the Gödel point. That is to feel the Gödel point. And basically, you were saying when someone comes to you and says, "Should I leave my wife or not?" All the, this is how I would kind of point at it, because there's always this weird thing of like philosophers, therapists, like psychoanalysts, they never tell you what to do, right? They're like, I can't make that decision. That doesn't, then you're like, well, they're worthless.
That's
A way
right.
to think about it, a way to that I would say is like the philosopher would, all I can do is make it plausible to you that a Gödel point exists and that you need to be in that to make that decision.
Yes.
That's all I can do for you. And that's actually all the philosopher ever does, is basically say, we're going to find the Gödel point. We're going to show the problem of internally consistent systems. We're going to find the Gödel point, and to make that decision, you need to make it in that. Once you get there, then you can make that decision. So basically, the philosopher, therapist, et cetera, so forth, is in the business of getting the person to the condition where they can make the decision they want made, or to figure out the thing they want figured out. Like what you're saying is that that thing you want figured out actually shouldn't be figured out outside the Gödel point. That's kind of the ethical imperative, where you're saying, no, we're actually claiming that that thing you want decided, what drives us, what motivates us, philosopher, therapy, in the work that we do, is the strong belief that decisions should not be made outside the Gödel point.
Yes.
But then in the Gödel point, you have to decide.
Yes.
Like then you will experience. But unless you're in the Gödel point, you're not meeting the condition necessary to make those conditions, to make those decisions. And dwelling in the Gödel point is an emotional experience. It is not merely dwelling in the postmodernism tried to make the Gödel point disembodied. Yes. By saying, I don't know anything, nothing is real. So it was a disembodied Gödel point, in a sense, right? Well, that doesn't work. The Gödel point has to be completely emotionally felt. You have to feel the problem of internally consistent systems, which is encountered when you, with your partner, go, oh my gosh, they have an internally consistent understanding of the situation that's different from mine, and that didn't even occur to me, and whoa.
Yep.
Now transformation can occur.
Yes.
Now things can happen, right? So the philosopher, like when the philosopher is making, like when Socrates and all these cats are making you doubt everything or whatever, they're doubting you to bring you to the Gödel point, not to deconstruct your beliefs, but to show the problem of internal consistent system to bring you to the freaking Gödel point. And at this point in history, that's becoming visible. So a few things. In the same way, like just as a few notes quickly, so we talked about how animation, free storytelling, which increases rationality. So animation is free from live action determinations. What you're doing in philosophy is freeing thought from the categories that are determined by you in your society to increase the probability you can tell the story to end up in the Gödel point. So like in the way that animation frees storytelling, which thus increases what you can think and how you can live your life, philosophy in a sense is freeing you from live action, because it is freeing you to think new categories. In therapy, you're freeing people from live action. You're animating their minds, and now they can tell different stories and think different ways, and now they can escape. Now they can approach the problem of internally consistent systems anew and differently, and maybe arrive at the Gödel point, right? So that's why playing with categories in metaphysics is so important, because it's like what animation is to live action, philosophy playing with categories is to thought. And if you don't do that, you won't end up in the Gödel point. You will never think the Gödel point. You'll always think the freaking internal consistent problem, right? So a few more things, like on this point also of people run to what they think is life and it's actually death. This great kind of inversion thing that's going on. Okay, so the first, like, one of the key phrases of OG that we started, Michelle and I, is the idea that irony is the fabric of reality. Like, irony is the defining feature of human experience. And what irony is where X does Y for Z, and Y is why X doesn't get Z. So it invert. Like, the thing you did to get that is the reason you didn't get it, right? So the reason why you ignored the Gödel point was to live, to be invincible, and that's precisely why you die, actually. Human existence is ironic. It is chock to the brim with irony. And once you realize that thought creates the problem of irony and makes you fall into it, then you're going to be trying to figure out how to animate it. You're going to figure out how to destabilize it and to play with the categories. Because if you do not do that, you're going to naturally end up in ironies, where the very thing that you did in order to be romantic makes you a prick. The very things you did to be enlightened will make you like, you get into all those problems, right? So you come to understand that there's always this certain spinning, this certain inversion going on. Now, actually, the other point I would make is this actually has massive ramifications in a business standpoint as well, and I think it ties to authentic gratitude. So for example, I would argue that what people like, you could argue that, okay, let's just use the image, the cover pictures, photographs, not the face, right? Oh, well, that's a fantastic strategy. Everyone's sick of the algorithm. That's beautiful marketing. So you're saying F the algorithm, and that's perfect. The algorithm loves that, right? Like everything you do, the refusal to do the face could then turn around and be the thing that people like, right? So it can spin. Everything can always pass into otherness, right? The playing to the algorithm can be acceptable, but then it passes over into the thing that's good marketing is not playing to the algorithm, right? So, but this is the point. Everything eventually passes over because there's always a good reason to play the algorithm, and there's always a good reason not to, because you're always dealing with internally consistent systems. It's the Kierkegaardian either or. You know, it's all either or. It's isomorphic. It's actually the same. So then the question is the following. How do you make your decision then? How do you make your decision? Because if one day playing to the algorithm is going to actually get old, and not playing to the algorithm what's algorithmic, but then also not playing to the algorithmic could be inauthentic, what do you do? What do you do? Well, first off, you have to realize that things are going to pass over into otherness, which is the Hegelian dialectic. And once you realize that, then you go, well, maybe I should make my decision. And that's actually to then position you in the Gödel point. That's why the Hegelian passing over can get you into the Gödel point, because once you realize that what's a good idea tomorrow will pass over into the opposite being the good idea, and there will be good arguments for that, and it will be internally consistent. Well, then you say, okay, well, what do I authentically resonate with? What else do you got? Yep. And you can look at and I actually think it's practically very true, because for me, like with the images, like I don't judge anyone who does any other strategy, but for me, the only thing that resonates is like, this feels right. Dang it, this is the right thing to do. And so you do that.
Yes.
And you could easily imagine a day, though, where something like the OG Rose YouTube page is actually what people are like, yeah, that's what's popular because it denies the algorithm. Maybe not. But here's also the thing. So many people are destroyed by popularity, right? So many people are destroyed by success, right? Because I basically believe that if at the foundation of your decision-making is not authentic resonance in non-rationality, then you cannot receive success without being destroyed by it. Yes. So you have to, at your foundation, make sure that what you're doing is something you can look at yourself and say, whether it's good for the algorithm or not, either or, the principle is the authentic resonance, right? You get there, though, by realizing that everything eventually passes over to otherness. And once you occupy that place and you say, but nevertheless, I'm going to have a YouTube channel and I'm going to create, well, then you go on the basis of authentic resonance versus what is good for the algorithm or bad to the algorithm or authentic to the creative act. You know, you avoid all of...
No, keep going, but it's because also, right, like what you're saying is popularity eventually fades anyway.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
so at least on the other side, even if you got it, at least on the other side of that, what you're left with is the thing that you started with, which authentically resonates. So it's still meaningful to, like it's still it's
still meaningful, and it's not obvious that popularity is good because millions of people are destroyed by popularity. But it's also not obvious that popularity is bad because there are many people who are popular who change people's lives for the better, right? So it's either or. It's internally consistent. The argument for or against works. It is internally consistent. Say, I'm going to do it for art's sake and not for people. Internal consistent. You say, no, I got to do art in a manner that reaches because otherwise it just is stuck on my computer and nobody cares. It's internally consistent. So it's either freaking or. It's both internally consistent system. So
that reminds me.
Once you're aware of this, once you understand this, now you can pass over to reason in Hegel, which means I have to make a decision with the knowledge things are going to pass over. And that means my decision-making heuristic can't be rationality because rationality could go either way. It has to be a Kierkegaardian leap of faith, a non-rational choice. And what is the basis of that choice? It must be authentic resonance. It must be. And this, I guess, is the point also, is basically when someone walks into your office and like, should I leave my wife or not? Or the philosopher is making you see that everything could go either way. What they're doing is saying you have to be in the place of the Gödel point because that decision must be made by authentic resonance. And until we get you to that place, there's no possibility of authentic resonance. So you can't make that choice. So you're leading them to the place of the possibility of authentic resonance so that they can make that choice. And I think good business advice brings an entrepreneur to a place where then they can make a business decision in terms of authentic resonance, because that's the only thing that's going to be sustainable and the only way they can make a lot of money or be popular and not be destroyed by it, or do it in a manner that makes them not get burned out and care to do it and create community. So a good business person leads the entrepreneur to a place where they can make an authentic resonance decision. The good philosopher brings people to a place where they can make an authentic resonance decision about their worldview. The good theologian, the good therapist, etc., so forth. And that's why you have this weird thing where philosophers and theologians or whatever never give you the answers, because actually only you can give you the answer. But there's also a deep awareness that it is only in a particular condition that you can give yourself the answer. And that is the encounter of the Gödel point, where there's emotional intimacy, encounter, surprise, vulnerability. That is where you find the answer. It's true. Yeah, you can. Oh, you hear it all the time. You know the answer. Be true to yourself. There's a certain condition by which you can know the answer. It's in the Gödel point. Everywhere else, no, you can't know the answer because you're not meeting the condition by which it can come out. All you can do outside the Gödel point is follow the internal consistency of your enclosure. And another term for that is damnation. And so it is very important to dwell in the Gödel point.
Looking out for the contradictions too, right? Like there are even, I mean, I'm going back to individuals in therapy, but even the people who have the most like rock solid kind of reasoning around their little internal hell, that you can, obviously this is what I'm doing, but you can hear the kind of little mistake or the contradiction slip out that they make, that doesn't actually fit that very concrete worldview, and actually just starting to point that out to a person, starting to build up. Again, it depends on the person, but starting to build up the capacity in a person that maybe they're not just this rock solid map. Maybe they're, I think also that's important, like actually being on the lookout within yourself, if you can, for the points where you act in a contradictory manner, or you find yourself doing the thing that you're always complaining that your spouse or your friend does to you and is so revolting. And then like you catch yourself in a minute going, oh, I did that. Like, I think just being on the lookout for, brief moments that can pierce through into our awareness of how we are not exactly how our conscious mind or our map tells us we are in relation to everyone else. Something more mysterious, something deeper is going on if you care to look. That's all that, it's just a little invitation. It's kind of, like the threads that are starting to stick out a little, or the moments of friction, the feeling that goes on in your body when you notice a little inner conflict in a moment about how to act. And again, this goes back to the striated signaling of anxiety of a particular form. That is actually a signal that you can pay attention. That's the anxiety that most people are familiar with, that like anxious feeling, tense. That is the kind of anxiety that we call the green light. That is the anxiety that's trying to tell you, oh, there's a little like contradiction. There's a little something here that's not in line with this kind of smooth way you have of seeing the world. You could take a moment to look at that if you want. But of course, we feel that in our body and we go, get the hell out of here. Like whatever's going on. Like, I don't want to look. I don't know what that was. Get out of the situation, run. And that's what we're taught too, right? We're taught like, anxiety is telling you need to go away and regulate and get out of that situation or whatever it is. Again, anxiety of a particular kind. That's my disclaimer. I'm not telling people to wander around in dissociated states and have difficult conversations with one another to find their Gödel points. That would be silly and irresponsible of me. But you can regulate that anxiety to a striated range. What was that?
I was imagining a little text coming across.
That's right.
Disclaimer. Disclaimer.
Please do not put in a complaint.
Algorithm loves that.
Yeah.
There's a word that I use, and I kind of have to watch myself because I think this word can get overused, but I think it is a little of what you were talking about, which is aliveness. And so it's, in other words, I'm proposing it's kind of a synonym for anxiety, but it's the one that we put a positive spin on it.
Yes.
And I was thinking it's kind of funny just now when you were talking, and also what Daniel was saying about you're helping the person to the Gödel point. And I was just thinking, yeah, and they might not thank you for that.
Oh
No,
no.
they may not.
This is
Oh, no.
often, right? So this is, I mean, this is in fact, I think, how the philosopher or the therapist or the coach or whomever actually faces the Gödel point as well.
Yes.
I think that I'm helping people,
Yes.
but actually I have to just amplify their pain until they make, you know, like, and of course we're not, you know,
Yes.
saying that you torture the person, but I mean, I've had people help me by, you know, I'll never forget. I had a Guy Sangstock, who I learned circling with. He once was circling me, and I won't get into all the particulars of what was going on in my life, but I was pretty angry.
Oh, why not?
You know? And so he just decided. He says, "Well, I just got the envelope from God." And he opens the envelope and tells me exactly what I don't want to hear. And it was all play acted, but his point was like, now God says so. What are you going to do about that? And I remember, like, my response was like, I'm really mad at God.
Yeah, I want to punch you in the face is what I want to do. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, when you get to that point of realizing you're really angry at God, if you believe in God or if you don't, you still probably know that phrase is like, don't people usually not win fights with God? You know, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
you realize the utter futility of what you're in the midst of. And then as much as it kills you, it kind of becomes, oh, what I'm doing is not it. It's gotta be some different pattern than the one I'm following. I need to let go of this. You know, I mean, that could take any kind of
just so you know, Seth, we call what you're describing there, and it's exactly on point. We call that in my form of therapy the head-on collision. So that is exactly what it is. It is
right. Well, in circling, they
people
have
are not thanking you for it. Yeah.
Yeah. The way Guy teaches circling, there are 7 stages, and the stage where that intervention would happen is called the warrior. Right. And they even say you can be the yin warrior or you can be the yang warrior. The yang warrior actually kind of points at you and rubs your face in it, whereas the yin warrior might just hold space, hold space, hold
No, we
space.
don't give choices.
Right. But
we don't give choices. Like you're there, you're ready. Yeah. Anyway, keep going, please. Sorry.
Something I've been thinking about, I was nodding to it before when I mentioned, you know, the afterlife. How do you think about the afterlife? Maybe this is slightly different, but an idea that can be associated with spirituality of many different forms is interconnectivity. And for me, this is really, I mean, essentially interconnectivity is a lot of what I'm talking about when I use the phrase musicality, right? And if you just think of music, like whether you're a musician or a band in the band, or you're just in the audience, like there's a feeling of connection when the chorus, you know, arrives. Like we all feel it. And, you know, the music, we're not physically touching, but the music permeates the space and it moves all the bodies at once. You know, if someone trips over the sound cable and the sound cuts, everybody in the room goes, what just happened? You know, like it's an instantaneous thing. Or you know, I was just sitting in the cafe earlier today. 4 people sitting together suddenly burst out laughing, like, right? The whole volume of the cafe jumps for a moment so that everyone else can like still hear their conversation. So this idea of interconnectivity, hopefully what I'm making plain is that I think it's very embodied. This is a thing that can be felt in to some degree of precision. And I love when I lead the musicality being workshop, I love to use the musical metaphors. I say there is a rhythm to how things happen. There is a kind of a melodic or a sequential or a narrative logic to how things unfold. There's ups and downs, but you can track them. You can notice, oh, the phrase just seemed to resolve there. Oh, now it's time to start a new phrase. There's sound and silence. And then harmony, is the simultaneity of things, which can be a situation where I pay attention to one layer and you're paying attention to another layer, but also, no matter which instrument in the orchestra we're listening to, we're both hearing the same piece of music, the same whole piece of music, which is a result of, the harmonic depth and color of something. And I think that these are things that we can tune into with our bodies. And so even though I don't know what's going to happen when I sit down across from this person and have this difficult conversation, I am totally sure that there's going to be a certain rhythm. There's going to be, a certain kind of melodic pattern that maybe it's abrupt and it gets, interrupted, but all of these things are just sort of energetic movements that I can begin to track. And I think that's what leads us to that sense of authentic resonance. Should I leave my wife or not? Maybe the therapist gives me, some new information where I see exactly what the difficulty is. And it's like, I still don't know if the difficulty is something that we can work out or not, but now I know what the difficulty is. Now I have the courage, let's say, to have the conversation, because it doesn't, I can see enough through the veil now that I'm willing to have a go at it. But as I sit there with my spouse, I'm going to have to track the expressions on her face. I'm going to have to notice when my heart beats faster and faster. And then when I, spit out, the sort of dramatic words that commit me to one thing and not the other, not knowing how she'll respond, like I might not even realize what I'm about to do. I might have a sense of, oh my God, I just said that, and yet if I've surrendered already to the situation, if I've put myself, sitting at the table across from her, and that I've sort of internally committed to, I'm going to bring up this topic and I'm just going to, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to bring it up, then that becomes, that becomes the opportunity to maybe come out the other side with something better. I mean, the couple maybe splits or they don't, but we've really shown the Gödel point to two people at the same time. I mean, there might be, here's a way I think as I've listened to Daniel talk about the indestructible map, this comes to me sometimes. It's like there could be let's say a place in the map that I can't quite see and you can't quite see, but if we go there, we can actually map it together. We can actually fill in that part of the map if the two of us, or maybe, a whole group of us comes to that place, like something like interfaith dialogue or those kinds of, things when they really work out well.
That's very good. That's a really good course of therapy too. That's you go together. Yeah.
I'm thinking of, I think the conversation hasn't been put out yet, but Jacob Kashir recently was in conversation with Matt Segal, and Matt Segal wrote up a whole, he just wrote an article sort of summarizing the discussion. And one of the things they talked about was religion, and something that came up was in Islam, like, you have Sharia law and all these things that seem so problematic in the West. And like, there's that. But then Islam has this sense of like, relationship to God is part of every, it's all day long, like the call comes to prayer in the middle of the day. Like we don't just pray on Sundays, or something like that. And, and then there was all, they were comparing with Christianity, and they were just sort of saying, well, if you could take this aspect of Islam, and if you could take this aspect of Christianity, talking about the actual institutions of these religions, how they show up in the world, that there is a way that you can take these incredibly valuable things from each one, but it's only by, setting up that difficult conversation where these things can even happen. I mean, I think Matt says in his summary even how Jacob brought up immigration at one point, and they both felt like, oh my God, are we really going to talk about immigration? Well, this is on the internet, you know, like it's like,
and that's at the internet's a third. Yeah, like it's, yeah.
Well, I was thinking that before when you were speaking, Aspasia, and well, I think we've been doing it, but even that moment where you remember you're being recorded and someone will watch it, it actually does something to how you express yourself, how you listen to yourself as you speak. You know, it kind of, there's something about the social coordination mechanism in that way that it just, you know, there can be those conversations where you really forget about it until the end. And then, but I think this is another thing that happens, and this is why.
But then you watch it back in editing too, though. Like if you do watch it back before you post it up, or you do, so even those ones where you do completely forget, if we call it that, because you're so accustomed to it and you're just in it. There is, at least for me, like the part of me though that then listens to it back before it goes up, where I'm like, then I'm aware, because then for one part of me is like, oh. And I mean, look, there is really an extra, I mean, there's extra layers for all of us, I guess. There's a lot that I would love to be able to share that honestly, just due to my job, would not make sense for me to be talking about on the internet, that, you know, some ex-client could, you know, like not about like clients, but just like about me as a person, that there is, look, I don't totally ascribe to the fact that people shouldn't know anything about me when they meet me as a therapist. I should be a blank slate. That's fine. But I do think there is some wisdom in that. And for me to just become this like, oh, let me tell you all about my life story, which I would otherwise be fine with. I have to, you know, I have to kind of not do as well. Sorry, that went sideways. But what you're saying there is really important, Seth. Like there is definitely, all of us, everyone that is recording something to put out, will have anxiety and defenses of a different kind against the faceless other of whoever will receive this. And they will come up and down at different points, and that will change the nature of what you share, how you share it, how we dance together as a three somewhat, like it will. And I, you know, that was a large part of why when I used to do these conversations at the start, I was perfectly fine. Like I'd join the call and I was good. The second someone said, now I'm hitting record, this whole like, the anxiety would come up, and it just used to drive me nuts. I was like, really, do we have to have this? Do we have to have this horrible anxiety? But that is why, because you have to take into consideration that it does introduce another person and another thing into the dynamic.
Excellent. There's a way in which the audience can function like the Gödel point, right? Because you don't know what they're going to say. You don't control them. They're outside of the system of this conversation. And so you can get the very experience of letting yourself be recorded can actually be a kind of emotional experience that can help you actually get trained to handle the Gödel point, right? Because you have to face anxiety, right? So there's many things for me, it would require, you know, saying more, but there is something about the social coordination mechanism that the way it works is like the map is indestructible problem. It is bringing to the Gödel gestalt, all of those things are coming up because you are experiencing in the infrastructure something that is akin to the Gödel gestalt that actually defines everything. Like all of reality is a Gödel gestalt because every map is a Gödel gestalt, right? It's a whole that has a Gödel point, right? So
it's
everything
like
is a Gödel
standing up on a stage, right? It's like standing up on a stage in front of a mass of people. You can't see, the lights are down, but you know they're there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a Gödel gestalt, like it is, and so you're getting to experience that, and this experience can be very useful for partners or work or other situations, right? Because you're getting more familiar with the ability to speak, not having control over who is there, who here, like you're getting used to that anxiety. So quick, you know, a few more things. What you were saying about absolutely. Contradictions can be a accelerator toward the realization of the Gödel point. And this is why Hegel was so concerned. He's saying, no. The point of thought is thinking contradiction, not to push them aside, like Kant and the Enlightenment wanted to do. Because thinking the contradiction increases the probability you encounter the limit. And when you encounter the limit of your map, now you can encounter the Gödel point, right? Absolute knowing in Hegel is basically the awareness of the Gödel point. Like absolute knowing is the awareness of the Gödel gestalt. That's what it is. Like you realize that limit is the defining feature of thought. You can never escape limit, but limit is the defining feature of thought. So working with limit, tearing with limit, thinking limit is how you think. And encountering the other in the Gödel point is the ultimate accomplishment of thought, is because it's where thought has to accept its inability to capture the whole without the other person. So the glory of thought isn't a certain failure of thought, but it turns out that failure was the negation sublation into a higher geometry. Because also what you were saying, Seth, about the interfaith dialogue, what I would argue happens there, it's only an interfaith dialogue that you can add dimensionality to your maps. Because here's the other move. The Gödel point makes your map geometry. Like your map without the Gödel point is algebra. It's flat. It's a internally consistent system. So what you do in the Gödel point is add a dimension. You remember the where you go like this, you get the sphere coming up. The Gödel point is where it becomes geometry. It's only in the Gödel point that you get geometry, because otherwise it's flat. It doesn't entail dimensionality. It does not entail otherness, right? Well, if it doesn't entail otherness, it's algebra. Otherness is dimensionality. A new dimension is otherness. So what ends up happening is in the interfaith dialogue, Christianity becomes, it gains a new dimension. Islam gains a new dimension. It becomes more intricate and more interesting. It gets dimensions that you didn't, it comes alive. It comes alive. It comes out, right? And God tends to be a powerful, word of the Gödel point. I mean, Gödel has God in it because it is that point of apathetic failure. It is that point of, we all believe, what is it? It's like Augustine said, what do I love when I love God? What am I even talking about when I talk about God? I know God, I believe God exists. What do I believe exists? Like that, every religion has that problem, even though they have different maps that articulate that problem. So that becomes a possibility of like a tunnel, a Gödel tunnel between everything, right? So that's very, very important. The key thing, I guess, what I would also say is that on the idea of the musicality of being, authentic resonance, so geometry, apprehension, the insight of Zwingli, my argument would be that all of those experiences are in the Gödel point. Like you have to be in the Gödel point to have those experiences. Like the point of a map is to find the Gödel point, which is then where you can have insight, like Zwingli talks about. It's where you have authentic resonance. It's where you have the musicality of being, right? So everything is about getting to the Gödel point where all those things happen. Because all of those things are actually the movement of algebra to geometry, because they add dimensionality. Because if you have a Gödel point and it's incomplete, well, if it's incomplete and it's everything, then there must be more than everything. Well, now we have a new dimension of being, right? Like now we have a metageometry versus something that's flat. And all of those things, like authentic resonance, insight, etc., they occur in the Gödel point. So basically in therapy and philosophy, you're like, what you need is to have a sense of the musicality of being. I don't know what you need to do with your wife, but I can tell you, if you don't have a sense of the musicality of being, you're not going to be able to make that decision. And the only place you can get that experience is in the Gödel point. So we got to get you to the Gödel point. And all I can do is make it plausible to you that point exists. All I can do to you is articulate the possibilities of which can be realized in that place. But you have to experience it to then meet the condition necessary to make the decision well.
And it's also that the therapeutic relationship itself sometimes becomes the Gödel point. Like it becomes,
yes.
So yeah, there's that too. Yes. I'm taking all this and cutting it up for sales pitches. Thank you. No one knows.
And we have enough frozen face videos, don't we?
Yeah.
Don't we have enough frozen faces? Oh, it's
I've already got
fantastic.
my plan for the thumbnails. Don't worry.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic
too. Yeah.
It all works out. No, it is in the Gödel point that all of these things are realized, and so what you're just trying to do is bring it. Like basically, it's like Jesus saying, "Come and see." Lay down. The one who lays down your life will find it. Yeah. The one who gives up, let your ego die, and all these things happen. It's like reality finally starts in the Gödel point. Like we were talking about with renewal and Jacob. Like renewal versus doing something new is the experience that something you've always been doing just started. And what ends up happening in the Gödel point is you have that experience of that quality of this relationship I've been for 20 years just started. It just gained a quality it's never had before. This thing I've always been doing just started. Because it just gained a quality that was always latent in it that I never realized. That's all in the Gödel point. And so it's really important to bring people there.
That's beautiful. Lovely.
Now we have frozen faces. What if I fall? Oh, what if like the algorithm would really like falling out of the chair or something?
Oh
like
yeah. Oh no.
You know, that's it.
Oh.
That's actually what it's on. It even came out my ears. Or if I get pulled out by a possum. Yeah. Like I'm hitting the cat, like the barn cat.
Oh yeah.
Oh wait, no, we shouldn't do. The video's definitely going to be pulled. No, we didn't hit no cat.
No, it's because the aggressive impulse. This is part of the therapy I do.
Yeah, that's good. I'm really growing. I'm growing as a person.
Look at you transform.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Oh, the algorithm loves that one.
With the cane, it reaches out from off screen.
If this entire shelf fell on me right now, it'd be perfect. Like, oh! And all the Clorox bottles and everything just goes on top of me. That would be great. I'd be dead, but it'd be fantastic for the algorithm.
So I'm gonna have the ex-client walk in and do the aggressive impulse.
Be like, we need to. We just like, well, that was that. Well,
that's the end. We went from life to death. Good. We did the whole thing.
Yeah, it's fine. Great series. So we died in different things.
This has been fun.
It's been a lot of fun. I hope your child will walk again. So it all works.
So. I'll send you guys an urgent update to let you know. I know you'll be on the edge of your seat to know if she'll ever be able to walk again. So
yeah, no, I'm waiting to find out.
So it feels appropriate to do something really awkward, and I'm going to end by plugging my content. How about that?
Fantastic.
Oh, please do it.
OGRose.com.
So I definitely could have brought in, but there's no time for it now. But I just published an article about how I spent an entire month every day sitting in meditation for 1 hour in front of the White House. And so I've just
Bam.
I love
this. Was the Gödel point. There's a lot of stories. I'd love to talk to you both about it, but obviously we've run out of time. So it's a cliffhanger, but I can give
you
more
here.
I can give you a link.
Oh, we got a point. Yeah, the point thing people do. It's like, hey.
Look scared and surprised at the same time.
And if you could hit that little bell. You know, if you could hit that little bell, if you could hit that little bell, oh, I love that one. Hit that little bell, hit that bell, make it happen.
I'll say one other thing, which is a little more of a
subscribe. We forgot.
Well, you should subscribe because
throwing up his marketing, Daniel. Stop it. We're throwing up his marketing. Just stop.
Maybe it's just better if we descend into mad laughter. Like this is like 2 or 3.
This is what the algorithm likes. Insanity. Let's just
I just had this thought recently when I was sort of doing my own thing late at night. No one else is here. I can do whatever I want, and I felt like, oh, I can do whatever I want. I can do this, do that, act strange. But then I thought, there's certain people I can do with them, and those are the people I call my friends.
Oh.
Amen. That's y'all. Amen. That's
a very sweet ending. I like that. Look at us. We went from humor to softness. So just the peaks and troughs. Yeah. So emotionally mature. Look at us. Just
there we go.
Cut.
Got some. Click the little bell. Click the little bell. For more emotional intimacy, click the little bell. For more, subscribe.
Yes, for more emotional intimacy button. More. Make it more intense. I want to see these
comment. Leave in the comments if you want to see more. Let us know in the comments if you want to see more intimacy moments. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, people are just watching us now for the entertainment.
Like,
feeling superior to us. Just like look at these.
Look at those people.
Nature.
I don't click no bells. Look at those people.
I don't click bells. I ring them. What's wrong with you?
I ring bells. I have cows.
There's something about ringing bells that's quite amusing now. It's been really
it's been great
and enlightening to speak with you both.
It's been very enlightening. Here's my final for you, Shay.
Seth's crying.
Oh no. Oh, that's it.
You do it so well, Daniel. You were built for the algorithm. Yeah, and flare the nostrils slightly. Yeah, that's it. That's the way. You got to.
That's actually it.
That's the Gödel point.
Oh gosh, my eyes.
That's the Gödel
I can't see. I gave up my sight for YouTube. I gave up my eyes for YouTube.
I knew the day would come.
Oh no! Oh man, Sophocles had it better. Oh gosh, Devious was better. So I'm glad your kid will walk again, Aspasia. All right, fantastic. So
that's all we need to know. As long as everyone knows she did walk.
Oh no, will he walk? With the video, like that's the two. You gotta, yeah.
Okay. What I will say
that was
is that actually, Seth, I would really love to talk about the thing, to talk about the White House.
You just have to end the video because Daniel's killing me here.
All right. That's authentic resonance.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, that's it.
And that's all you need to know. That the next video will be 60 minutes of that. So thanks for joining, everyone. Now I'm talking to the audience. Look at me.
He's trying the same thing he's been trying for the last.
Going to move through the Gödel point. You're stuck.
I'm going to move to the Gödel point.
It's like birth. You're just stuck in the birth canal. You just one more push. No, not working.
That's my true self. That was my authentic self. That's the best I can do. That was it. That was the Gödel point. That was the damn point.
Is that the Gödel point or is that the Achilles heel? Yeah.
Yeah, that's well. I'll let.
That's our next.
Well, they're the same thing. Actually, they go together, don't they?
Yeah. So it goes very well. Today we don't know yet. Next
starting to feel pretty emotional.
Next time, click the bell. Click the bell for next time.
What was that?
Instead of starting to feel emotionally intimate.
Yeah, it's getting really
too emotionally intimate.
It's getting. We have to cut middle of the emotional intimacy. Like you have to leave.
I'll leave you terrified and trauma bonded till next time. Bye, guys.
If we could just rewind a few seconds to see that double toothpick clip, because I think that'll also be good.
Thumbnail.
Yeah, algorithm loves that stuff. I'm a walrus. The walrus. We were all set.
Of knowledge.
Yeah, the walrus.